It's This American Life. I'm Ira Glass. Each week on our show, we choose a theme, bring you different kinds of stories on that theme. Today's show, escape. We have stories today of people trying to escape to someplace totally new without, in these cases, going very far from home at all. We're going to devote most of our show today to the story of a guy in Tampa, Florida, named Mike Phillips and his mom. And the two of them are in this situation that I think a lot of parents and kids get into at some point or another, where they're kind of at each other's throats a little bit. Except in the case of Mike and his mom, for some very specialized reasons, as you'll see, they get stuck in this situation for years.
Of all the weird things about Mike's life, I think the weirdest is how delicate and tenuous his connection to the world is sometimes. If his thumb is just a fraction of an inch away from this little switch that runs his computer, he can't type, so he can't communicate. And he has all these horrifying stories where something goes wrong in a way that could kill him, and he has no way to tell anybody. He wrote me in an email that when that happens, I blink and move my eyebrows wildly. The signal for, I can't breathe. The signal for help, I'm screwed. If it's the middle of the night, he watches TV. I actually think about the other people out there watching TV, he wrote, completely unaware that I'm dying while we watch Nick at Night. Though when you meet Mike, he's remarkably chill for somebody who regularly has these moments of total, frightening isolation. So Mike, let's review all the different ways that you communicate. Just show me yes and no. And then you had one for reset, when it's time to reset everything. Okay, I'm gonna ask a question now and type your answer in. The question is, so if we were to replace your voice with somebody's, like, what would you want it to be? This process is just incredibly slow. Typing out this one-sentence answer takes over 3 minutes.
I totally want either Johnny Depp or Edward Norton, whoever is available, because either way, they are both badasses.
That's absolutely amazing. Mike, you think you're ready?
I'm ready.
You sure?
This is the before shot.
This is the before shot.
Before.
Ladies and gentlemen, reading from Mike's emails, Mr. Johnny Depp.
When I was a kid, I could sit up and drive a power wheelchair. I could breathe on my own, so I played outside with my brother and neighborhood kids. Interestingly, technological advancements have kept pace with my disabilities. As it got harder to drive my chair, we got video games. As breathing got harder, the BiPAP was invented. When I lost the ability to speak, software already existed to do the speaking for me.
Mike has something called SMA, spinal muscular atrophy. Used to be, kids with SMA as severe as Mike's didn't live past childhood. They didn't have the muscles to keep breathing. But now because breathing machines have gotten so good, for the first time, kids like Mike can live to adulthood. So Mike is kind of on the frontier of figuring out something nobody's had to figure out before.
Okay. Whoa!
How to be in charge of your own life. How to live as an adult with this disease. So Mike told me that when he was 23, he decided that he wanted to paint his room for the first time. He wanted dark purple walls, black ceiling, and you just like, no way, this won't happen.
The ceiling was not, yeah, that's true. To me, it was like living in a room that dark would have been really depressing. And I did not want to spend that much time in a room that I was going to feel totally depressed.
So you sleep every night on the floor next to your 27-year-old son.
You know, it's survival. I mean, there's always something that needs to be done.
Okay.
Adjusting his hand, his legs, turning his head, suction.
Okay.
It is a relationship of one person dependent upon another for every physical need.
In a way that you would do with a small child.
Right.
So Karen and Mike are in this situation that would be hard on any parent and kid, where she's never gotten a break from the most time-consuming kind of childcare, and he's never gotten a break from his mom.
I don't think there's any way for me to say this without coming off as horrible, but I'll say it anyway. As a kid, it's fine having your mom around all the time. As a kid, I wanted that. And my mom's an amazing person who's taken care of me my entire life. She's kept me alive. But I guess I was in my early 20s that I started feeling really restless. I knew I wanted more out of life. That I didn't want to watch TV with my mom forever. Started feeling like a typical disability cliche, and it bothered me. I guess I wanted to live like Brian, my brother.
I think if you're around anybody 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're going to need a break sometimes. That's part of Mike getting frustrated is Mike wants to go out and be independent and do things, and she's like, whoa, slow down. And he's like, no, I don't need to slow down. And she's like, yeah, well, you kind of do. You have a lot of health problems. If anybody knows how to take care of them best, it's her. But I think it's a strain on their relationship, and therefore they kind of clash.
My dream.
The way it always worked, and Mike and his mom both describe it this way, is that Mike always gave in to Karen on what he wore, on how the ceiling would be painted, and whether he turned off his stereo and let her watch CSI. Until, finally, about a year and a half ago, he stopped giving in.
Nobody ever wants to say to their mom at the age of 54, sorry, Mom, this isn't working anymore. But I posted an ad on Craigslist, and a few days later, I hired my first assistant.
You want to paint your nails now? Are you done? You have any last words? So what book are you reading? You want to do the alphabet? Okay. A, B, C, D.
Celeste wasn't Mike's first part-time assistant. In fact, these days are more like friends.
Okay, second letter.
Mike pays for his assistants with money that he gets from the state, which pays for everything in his life.
L-M-N-O-P-Q-R-S.
I start to realize after years of being bored, years of being afraid to rock the boat,
I have to burn it. Ah, I can do that.
that other people can take care of me. I go to movies, coffee shops. I paint my nails black. I get my first tattoo. I go out and try on shirts with somebody who isn't part of my family, who doesn't say, do you really want to wear all that black? Paid assistants don't question anything. Not the clothes, not the nail polish. I feel good enough to do anything. I post more ads on Craigslist.
How'd you guys meet?
Craigslist.
And what did he say in his ad?
That was a great ad. First of all, it was perfectly spelled and punctuated. Very sexy. It's a big deal for me. And at the end, he said, you know, by the way, I have a disability. I'm in a wheelchair. And that was intriguing. What I remember from the first time I met him was looking down at him and meeting his eyes. He looked back at me, and he kind of did this, you know, this little waggle with his eyebrows. And, you know, and the message was, boy, this is awkward. Yeah, you know, this is crazy. Here we are, you and me.
On a date.
On a date.
We were just leaving a movie theater. They had to throw us out because we were talking in the lounge 15 minutes past closing. She actually recited the entire opening to Richard III during the conversation, which was hot.
Oh, easy does it.
Her eyes are what first struck me about her. Her gaze is enough to make me forget about all the things that tend to worry me unendingly. I don't think about when I might die or whether or not I'm doing enough with my life. For a moment, all of that goes away. My brother says that I'm too puppies and flowers now because I say things like, wow, it's beautiful out. Well, finally, I genuinely say, fuck that. If I'm too puppies and flowers spouting Pollyanna bullshit, so be it. All that matters is at the end of the day, I'm not miserable.
I was really hesitant to be in a relationship with him. And I worried about being looked at as like a giant pervert. I worried about my motives. You know, was I fetishizing him? You know, was I with him just to feel special? We used to joke about like how noble I was. That was like our running joke. And like with all running jokes in relationships, there's like this little grain of truth at the center of it. And a lot of people in my life were asking me, what does it mean that you're going out with this guy? What's wrong with you? Are you okay?
What do you want to say about your sex life with him?
We'd be lying in bed talking. And Mike would say, "Can I touch your face?" And I'd pick his hand up and I'd bring it up to my face. He'd tell me what to do, and I'd put his hand there. With SMA, all of your autonomic nervous system works just fine. Everything worked great, but
I mean, everything in him looked great.
yeah.
When I asked Mike about their sex life, he writes,
Evidently, as it turns out, I'm quite good. Who knew? I mean, it's not easy to explain, but at any rate, when we're together like that, we just click. I mean, it's accurate to say that I definitely know what I'm doing. But God knows how I know.
Now, this happened to Mike during this year when he also had a startlingly high number of near-death experiences, even for him. 3 medical emergencies put him in the hospital. His breathing gear failed when he was at a tattoo convention with an assistant. And again, when his brother was watching him, his brother didn't notice that an air hose had fallen off, which put Mike into a coma. And one of the biggest things that's kept Mike living with his mom is that he feels safe, medically safe, in her care. And she prefers to be in charge.
You know, repeatedly, every time I have tried, or we've been in situations where you think everything is fine, somebody screws up. And when they screw up with Mike, they almost kill him. People make mistakes. I don't make mistakes.
One night, this is back when Mike could still eat and drink normally, and still speak normally. He was hanging out with Sarah. And it was Sarah who was feeding him pineapple juice when he choked and blacked out.
I don't remember anything about that night that put me in the hospital again. I remember flashes of those first few waking days in the ICU, my girlfriend running her fingers through my hair. I remember waking one night at around 4 a.m. I got the idea that I had actually died.
I was holding on to him going, "Don't go." I thought he was dead. I thought he was dead.
Because?
Well, he died. His heart stopped. And then 20 minutes later, he woke up.
After the hospital and not being able to talk, he got down. He was on some pretty high, powerful pain medication when he got back from the hospital, and he didn't really want to stop taking it. It's a difficult situation when you're watching somebody do something that you know is not necessarily altogether good for them, but as Mike's friend and somebody who understands that he's 26 years old and can make decisions for himself, well, you know, that's the decision you want to make, and so I want to help you fulfill that decision. I want to be the legs for you.
The hardest were the drugs. He'd throw every argument in the book at me. He needed it. I can stop this at any time, and he couldn't. I actually started putting, grenadine was the same color. It was because Mike's, all of his medicine had to be either liquid or crushed and dissolved and put into his feeding tube. And I literally just started giving him grenadine, and he kept saying, well, this isn't working anymore. And I just would say, well, you know, we're down to practically a quarter of a teaspoon or an eighth of a teaspoon. And finally he just said, okay, that was it. I mean, I just gradually got him off of it.
By deceiving him?
Yeah.
One reason for all the drugs was that in the hospital, a hole was cut in Mike's neck and a tube pushed down his throat. And this was the thing that made it impossible for him to talk. This was the moment that he lost the ability to speak, which cut him off from the world in a way he'd never been.
Waking up and not being able to speak is something that I have yet to truly accept. Over the years, I've lost plenty of abilities, but none of that bothered me. The last 6 months, by far, have been the roughest 6 months of my entire life. Sarah was over, her head on my shoulder. It was just like before everything went awry, yet at the same time, it was very different. I couldn't type fast enough. I couldn't say the things I really wanted to say in that situation. And the things that I could tell her
Came out in a voice that wasn't my own.
came out in a voice that wasn't my own.
When he went into the hospital, I had already resolved to break up with him.
You mean before he went in? Really?
Yeah. And things were getting really bad. You know, we'd make plans and he'd break them. And he wouldn't tell me why. And it would turn out that he'd had a big fight with Karen. And he just wasn't up to going out. Him living with Karen was a deal breaker.
After Sarah left him, on the blog that he keeps, things got darker than they'd ever been. He wrote, "They should have let me bleed in the bathtub." He wrote, "So I've decided to quit society for a while. There's something broken, genuinely broken in me that needs to be fixed." He wrote, "Sarah's gone. Everything's gone." Months pass.
I know you almost never do this, but I know you can actually talk for brief periods of time if you have your trach tube removed. So can we try? Okay. So I know that we're going to put a mask on you first before we change the way the trach tube works.
Ready, Mike?
So when's the last time you spoke?
So that's I haven't done it in a while. It's not the most comfortable process in the world.
I have to say it feels completely different to interact with you this way.
Is it better or worse?
It's easier.
Thanks.
But it's also harder because it's harder to understand. You
Is it
know?
lovely how that works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely how that works.
Before I take my mask off, did I talk to Sarah for 1 minute?
Sure. Yeah. Do you want us to go out?
Yeah.
Okay.
For
That's
a
great.
minute.
Okay, let's go.
Sarah.
There I am.
Hey.
You.
How do you know it?
It's going good.
How do I sound?
You sound like
Terrible.
yourself. No, you sound like you always sounded.
It's so weird.
I know.
It's not used to it at all.
It makes me really happy.
You look happy.
It's just nice to hear your voice. Second?
Oh, okay. I love you now.
I love you too.
I want to say that.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
So, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V. Sat. Maybe here.
After this moment, when Sarah heard him speak for the first time in months, they started spending more time together. Mike took more of a stand with his mom. And then one day, on a trip to the park, Mike gives Sarah this look, and she leans over and kisses him.
The whole thing was very John Cusack. It had just started to rain, and sure, I have a BiPAP, a trach, and 3 batteries. None of it really ought to get wet, but at this point, I don't care. The world is just absolutely fucking spectacular.
Then in the fall, when things got a little tense between Mike and his mom, they decided that she would take a break, go for a vacation to upstate New York. And Mike would be without her for a full week for the first time in his adult life.
The whole time I was up north, I really had a hard time just figuring out what to do with myself. It's so unusual to just sit and go to the kitchen, go do this, go do that, get in the car, go.
But where you don't have to look in on him every 3 minutes.
Yeah, it was different. That quiet, it was not easy.
For me, the week was amazing. I scheduled all the assistants. I trusted in my ability to instruct them. I ate when I wanted to eat. I had a nice bath every day. I didn't feel like I was bothering anybody. I felt very autonomous, very much like the adult I want to be. I was very relaxed.
So at some point, Mike sees himself as being fully independent and moving out. Do you see that happening?
That's a tough one, because the funding that Michael gets is tied to his receiving care in the home. And to be totally independent.
In the home from a family member, you mean?
Yes.
So you think the economic reality is it's going to be very hard for him to ever move out and for you guys to be apart?
Yeah.
If you were to say to Mike kind of as flatly as we're saying to each other here, the reality is he probably won't ever be able to live alone, how do you think he would react?
I think he would feel stuck. I do. I don't want him to feel stuck, but...
But it's not just him that's stuck, it's like you're stuck together.
I don't feel stuck. I don't want him to be miserable and unhappy, but I also don't want him to be sick and dead.
Mike is now convinced that he could run his own medical care, as well as his mother runs it. And there is a way that he could live independently with the money that he gets from the state.
I obviously understand my mom's concern, but the fact remains that I'm just having very common experiences, albeit later than, say, my brother. I only ask for freedoms that most people get without saying. By this time next year, I see myself on my own, living my own life. I think the distance will make things better between us. I see myself in my own apartment or smaller house. I see myself with Sarah. I need a different life, a life that any son is expected and encouraged to have. I just recently became truly aware of how tenuous my life is. So I really don't have time to waste on fear.